Hi and welcome back to the channel. I'm Dr. Downey and today we're going to discuss how long your steroid cycle should be. Now, I'm not advocating you do start a steroid cycle, but if you've already made the choice, how long should it be? So most probably know, if you've done your research, they suggest 6 to 8 weeks if it's an oral or 12 weeks if it's an injectable cycle. The 6 to 8 weeks recommendation for an oral cycle is probably best due to them being most toxic. However, the 12-week recommendation, I'm not sure where this came from, but it does seem to be outdated. One of the reasons why for this is why it is outdated or doesn't really make sense is because if you look anecdotally, based off steroid form compound experience and things like that, most people will tell you that around the 8th week or 6th week sometimes, especially if you're using a longer ester, you start noticing the gains or the better recovery. And now it wouldn't make sense if at a 12, if you finally got that boost to only have 4 more weeks, you'd like to maximize the amount of time since you are already shutting yourself down. So we'll look at studies and see what the recommendations are. Obviously they don't recommend steroid cycles and neither do I, but let's see how long they've done them. So as referenced in my previous video, this topic was brought up because of the length of time these studies were conducted. So there was that study I mentioned in the previous video comparing those varying testosterone doses, which was conducted over 20 weeks. The highest dose being 600 milligrams of testosterone, and no detrimental effects besides a skew in HDL were noted, which is always noted. Obviously, individuals were shut down, but I'll get on to that just now. However, at the end of the study, all men recovered, and they had a baseline, so they know if they recovered or not. They had baseline hormonal levels, and they recovered back to those baseline hormonal levels. So there was another study where it was a contraceptive study, and they administered high-dose testosterone, and they showed that there were no deleterious effects or adverse effects, and concluded that 16 to 24 weeks of exogenous testosterone use, high-dose exogenous testosterone use, seems to be safe. Again, all men recovered back. So again, these we should use the science in this case and perhaps recommend 16 to 24 weeks as the length of a steroid cycle because of the science that backs it. However, you may argue that you don't want to extend more than 12 weeks because of greater shutdown, which if you're cycling, shutdown is obviously a concern, but if you're cruising, I don't see the issue of, I don't see why one would pick 12 weeks over a more efficacious 16 to 24 weeks. So individuals may reference this study that I'll show above, where age and duration of testosterone therapy predict the time for sperm count to recover. And by sperm count, we're using that as a surrogate marker for recovery of hormones. Again, all managed to recover, and there was an issue with the confounding variable in that those who were older in the study were on testosterone longer than those who were younger, and it's quite obvious that those who are older will obviously take much longer to recover than those who are younger. But again, I'll show another study where we compare a 10-week cycle to a 20-week cycle. So we'll take that study of the 600 milligrams of testosterone a week and compare it to this other study where they administered testosterone in people who worked out and people who were sedentary or just sat on their couch. And if you look at the results in the study of 10 weeks of treatment, the LH and FSH indicate that there is suppression. And I've highlighted the ranges. So as you can see from the baseline to where they were at after 10 weeks, there is quite significant suppression. And again, these values are comparable to the 20-week cycle, which I'll show now, where again their LH at all doses, again it's not related to dose. It doesn't seem, shutdown isn't related to dose. LH was shut down in both, it would seem, and more so in the 10, but both were shut down. But at the end of both studies, both recovered and returned to a normal baseline. However, it would have been interesting to see how the testicles were in terms of like a biopsy of the testicles in the 10-week versus 20-week group. So obviously there's these studies aren't really comparable to what most people are doing, because most individuals are using other compounds other than just testosterone, such as those with 19-nor derivatives, which are highly suppressive, and there's individual variation, which is plays a major factor. And most don't check their baseline, so they'll, at the end of the cycle, they'll realize, oh, I don't think I've recovered, I still feel low, and go check, and their hormones are low, but they didn't have a baseline to check it against. So that also causes people to assume, oh, it must have been the length of the cycle or the compound I used, but without a baseline we can't really say for sure. And again, if you're using short-acting esters, such as like a propionate, your cycle would not have to be as long, theoretically as long either. However, I've never seen people claim that testosterone propionate gave them gains quicker than testosterone enanthate. I have seen that in the case of trampoline acetate versus enanthate. So, what do I recommend? I don't recommend doing a cycle, obviously, but if you are, shutdown will occur at 10 weeks and the ability to recover does not seem to be affected by a duration of 24 weeks. Perhaps longer it may have affected the time it takes for you to recover, but if you're going to shut yourself down, I suppose do it with a purpose, or do it with science behind it, where you can extend it to 24 weeks or 16 to 24 weeks without deleterious effects to your health and still have the ability to recover. And again, taking the half-life of compounds into consideration, you wouldn't want a cycle where you're only experiencing the effects for 4 weeks. So thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please leave a like. Let me know what you think. Obviously, this is just me taking information, and it's not necessarily correct. If you don't think so, let me know why I could be wrong. I'm open to discussion. So yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you.